Hello, sports fans. Welcome to Spruce Sports Central. Today, we're going to be going over my Week 8 college football predictions. So last week, I had a record of 14-3, and that brings my record on the season to 109-24. Kicking things off this week with a couple of games we have on Friday, beginning with Oregon at Purdue. So Oregon needs to avoid a letdown game after their big win over Ohio State last week, but they now face a Purdue team that isn't very good. As Purdue is just 1-5, although they did almost beat Illinois last week in overtime, losing 50-49. But the Purdue defense is terrible, allowing 39 points per game, which is fifth worst in the country, and they face a good Oregon offense that's scoring 34.5 points per game. So the Oregon offense is going to have a field day against a bad defense. Now, Purdue can score offensively like we saw last week where they put up 49 points, and on the season they're scoring 23.7 per game, but the Oregon defense is pretty solid, allowing under 20 points per game. And while this could be a letdown game for Oregon, I don't think it will be. In fact, I think it's going to be the exact opposite for Oregon. I think they're going to build off last week's win for the rest of the season, and I think Oregon's going to continue to play extremely well, and they will beat Purdue, winning easily by a score of 37-13. Up next, we have Oklahoma State at BYU. So BYU is looking to remain undefeated, and they face an Oklahoma State team that was thought to have been a contender in the Big 12, but they're now 3-3 and have lost 3 straight games. Plus, for Oklahoma State, it wasn't even close last week as they were destroyed by West Virginia, losing by 24. A big reason Oklahoma State has struggled is their lack of a run game and a lack of a defense, as they're rushing for just 91 yards per game and allowing over 27 points per game. They now face a BYU team that is good defensively, allowing only 16.3 points per game, and their offense is pretty good as well, scoring 34.3 points per game. Now, there's potential here for an upset, especially if Oklahoma State could just put it all together, but I don't see them doing it in this game. BYU is looking great. They're home. Their defense is much better here, and BYU wins by a score of 27-20. And moving to the rest of the games, all on Saturday, beginning with Miami at Louisville. So this is a really interesting game. Miami is 6-0, Louisville is 4-2, and they've lost back-to-back games. And although Louisville has lost back-to-back games, I still think they're a good team, and they're one of the few teams left on Miami's schedule who can actually beat them in the regular season. But Miami, they have a great offense, scoring 47.7 points per game, which is best in the country. They're also best in the country in terms of passing offense, throwing for 400 passing yards per game. But the elite Miami offense now faces a good Louisville defense that is allowing a 19.7 points per game. On the other side, Louisville is pretty good offensively, scoring 36.2 points per game, and they face a Miami defense that has struggled in each of their last 2 games, allowing over 30 points in both games. So with both teams being good offensively, I think this is going to be a higher scoring game. There is definitely potential for an upset here for a couple of reasons. One, Miami almost lost their past 2 games. 2, Louisville has the better defense, and 3, they're home. So this could very well be an upset, and I would not be shocked in the slightest. But I'm going to take Miami to get the win, remain undefeated. I think if this game becomes a shootout, Miami has the better offense. Cam Ward will outplay Tyler Shuff, and the Miami offense will outscore Louisville, and Miami remains undefeated, winning 37-34. Up next, we have Virginia at Clemson. So this is another ACC conference game that I could see being tough for the ranked team. As Clemson, they've been great since their Week 1 loss to Georgia, winning 5 straight games, and during that 5-game winning streak, they've scoring 50 points per game. But Virginia, they're a quietly solid team. They're 4-2 and pretty good defensively, allowing 22 points per game. Now, while Virginia's defense is pretty good, I don't think it will be enough to slow down a great Clemson offense. Plus, Virginia does not have the offense to keep up with Clemson, as they're scoring under 30 points per game. So I do think Virginia is an underrated team in the ACC. They will not be able to beat Clemson. Clemson continues to win their winning streak, which is 6 games, and they win by a score of 38-20. Up next, we have Nebraska at Indiana. So this is another interesting game. As both these teams have gotten off to great starts, Nebraska is 5-1 and Indiana is 6-0. Now the catch is neither team has really played anyone good. But Indiana, they have one of the highest scoring offenses in the country, scoring 47.5 points per game. But they face a Nebraska defense that is very good, allowing just 11.3 points per game. Then on the other side, Nebraska is scoring 28 points per game, while Indiana is allowing 14.8 points per game. So both these teams are pretty good defensively, but I think Curtis Rourke and the Indiana offense will be the difference. Curtis Rourke has had a great season so far. I think he continues to play well, even against a tough defense. Indiana remains undefeated with a 26-21 win over Nebraska, but this is another game that could truly go either way. Up next, we have Auburn at Missouri. So Missouri is coming off a 45-3 win over UMass, and that was a good bounce back win after their loss to Texas A&M a couple weeks ago. Auburn is a team that isn't great. They've lost 3 straight games, and they're 2-4 on the season. They've relied a lot on their defense, which is solid, but the Auburn offense isn't good, as they don't really have a quarterback and they turn the ball over a lot. That is not a recipe for success against a Missouri team that is already good defensively, allowing just 15 points per game. Plus, their offense is scoring 33 points per game, and you don't want to give them extra possessions. But Missouri, I think they'll win this game pretty easily, and I've got them winning by a score of 34-13. Moving on, we have East Carolina at Army. So Army has been playing extremely well to start the season, as they're 6-0 and have been absolutely dominant with the triple option. Now, as you would expect with the triple option team, they lead the country with 369 rushing yards per game, while also averaging 6.9 yards per carry. And their offense is also scoring 40 points per game. Now, East Carolina isn't terrible against the run, but it's not great either. But obviously, stopping the triple option is a lot different than your average run game. Now, East Carolina's offense is decent, scoring 27 points per game, but they will not be able to keep up with the Army offense, and Army will improve to 7-0 on the season with a 31-17 win. Up next, we have Notre Dame against Georgia Tech in Atlanta. So this game is technically a neutral site game being played at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, but Notre Dame, they just face a Georgia Tech team from Atlanta in Atlanta, just not their home stadium. But Georgia Tech, they've been pretty good on the season, as they're 5-2, but they will be without starting quarterback Haynes King for this game, as he's been ruled out with an injury. Now, Georgia Tech is a run-first offense, as they're rushing for 204 yards per game, but quarterback Haynes King is a big part of their run game. Now, the Georgia Tech offense faces the Notre Dame defense that has pretty good numbers against the run, allowing just 121 rushing yards per game and 3.4 yards per carry. Notre Dame is a team that also relies heavily on running the football, as they're running for 216 yards per game, and face a Georgia Tech team that's pretty good in stopping the run, allowing just 103 rushing yards per game. Now, both teams are good running the football and also good against the run, but I do think Notre Dame will be able to get the win for a few reasons. One, while their passing numbers on the season aren't great, they have been improving each passing week, and quarterback Riley Leonard is coming off his best game of the season with 3 passing touchdowns. The second reason I have Notre Dame winning is their defense. They have one of the best defenses in the country, allowing just 11 points per game. And the final reason I have Notre Dame, I don't really think Georgia Tech has a chance without their starting quarterback Haynes King. So I have Notre Dame winning this game, and it's going to end up being pretty easily, especially now that Georgia Tech's without their starting quarterback, and Notre Dame wins very easily 38-10. Up next, we have Alabama at Tennessee. So this is a huge game for both teams, and both teams are actually in very similar situations. As neither team is playing that well right now, both teams lost 2 weeks ago on the road against unranked opponents, as Alabama lost to Vanderbilt, and Tennessee lost to Arkansas. Then last week, both teams returned home to play very close games again against not great opponents, as Alabama beat South Carolina by 2, and Tennessee needed overtime to beat Florida. Now, with how bad each team is playing right now, that makes this game really interesting and extremely difficult to predict. The Tennessee offense has been a big reason for their recent struggles, as they're scoring just 14 points and 23 points in their last 2 games, respectively. And the Tennessee offense is still good on the season, scoring 42 points per game, and they've leaned on the run game, rushing for 246 yards per game. Now, the Tennessee offense faces an Alabama defense that has also struggled as of late, as Alabama has allowed 34, 40, and 25 points in their last 3 games, and they're now allowing 20.8 points per game on the season. Then on the flip side, it is elite versus elite. Tennessee is great defensively, allowing just 10.7 points per game, but the Alabama offense is also great, scoring 41.7 points per game. But this game is a true toss-up. Alabama has won 16 of the last 17 matchups against Tennessee, with the one exception being in 2022. But I am going to take Tennessee to get the win here. I trust them defensively to contain a great Alabama offense, and even though the Tennessee offense isn't scoring right now, they're still running the football well, and I think they're going to win this game behind their run game and defense. Tennessee is also home, and I'm going to take Tennessee to upset Alabama and win in a very close game, 31-24. Moving on, we have Michigan at Illinois. So this is another game that could really go either way. Michigan hasn't been that good to start the season, as they're just 4-2, and they don't have to play an Illinois team that has been pretty good sitting at 5-1. Michigan will be starting 7th-year senior Jack Tuttle at quarterback, and this will be their 3rd quarterback to start a game this season. But the Michigan quarterback situation is awful, as is their pass game, as Michigan is throwing for just 115 yards per game, which is 5th worst in the country, and they now have to face an Illinois defense that's pretty solid all around and good against the pass, allowing under 200 passing yards per game. Now, the Michigan run game is good, rushing for 191 yards per game, and the Illinois defense isn't great against the run, allowing 150 yards per game. And then on the flip side, Illinois is scoring 31 points per game, and they face a Michigan defense that hasn't been great, allowing 22.3 points a game. But this is another game that can definitely go either way. I'm going to take Illinois to get the win, just because I don't think Michigan will be able to do a ton outside of running the football. Plus, Illinois is home. I'm not confident with this pick, but I have Illinois barely beating Michigan by a score of 23-16, but this is another game, a true coin flip. Up next, we have Charlotte at Navy. So Navy, they've been great this season as they're 5-0, and they're playing really well. You wouldn't really expect a triple option team to have an elite offense, but Navy is really good offensively. They're the fifth highest scoring team in the country, scoring 43.6 points per game. And as you would expect with them being a triple option team, they have a great run game, rushing for 295 yards per game. But despite being a triple option team, Navy actually throws the ball very well, throwing for 169 yards per game, plus they're leading the country with 12.5 yards per pass attempt. Now, Navy faces a Charlotte team with a terrible defense, allowing 31.7 points a game, plus they're bad against the run and the pass. The Charlotte offense isn't great either, scoring just 24 points per game. They will not be able to keep up the Navy offense. Navy remains undefeated and wins big by a score of 42-13. Up next, we have Texas A&M at Mississippi State. So Mississippi State is awful. They're 1-5, have lost 5 in a row, and they were okay last week, losing by 10 to Georgia, but maybe that's improvement, but I still think they're awful. Now, Texas A&M has won 5 straight since their Week 1 loss to Notre Dame, and in their most recent game, they demolished Missouri. They do need to avoid a letdown game, but I think they will be able to avoid a letdown game because they are coming off a bye. But Texas A&M is the better team on both sides of the ball. The Aggies are scoring 31 points per game, while Mississippi State is scoring 28 points a game. And then defensively, there is a massive difference. Texas A&M allowing 16.7 points a game, while Mississippi State allowing 33 points per game. So I think Texas A&M wins this game pretty easily, and I've got them winning 41-15. Up next, we have Arkansas hosting LSU. So LSU is coming off a big win over Ole Miss, and need to avoid a letdown against Arkansas. And this is an Arkansas team that definitely has the potential to pull off an upset, because look at what they did to Tennessee a couple weeks ago. The Arkansas defense was great in their win over Tennessee, and they need to play well once again, trying to stop an LSU offense scoring 34 points per game. Arkansas is scoring 33 points a game, but their offense might not be quite that good because they could be without starting quarterback Kalen Green, who's currently battling a knee injury. Now, the Arkansas offense faces an LSU defense that's allowing 22.3 points per game, and while there is potential for an upset here, I don't see it happening, especially if Arkansas does not have their starting quarterback. So I've got LSU winning this one 34-17, and that is if Kalen Green doesn't play. If he does play, I still think LSU wins, I just think it's a little closer. Moving on, we have Texas hosting Georgia. So we will have a live watch party for this game, and that will start at about 7:30 Eastern Time, so I hope to see you guys there. But this is a huge game. Texas has looked like arguably the best team in the country to this point in the season, and Georgia is good, but they desperately need to avoid a second loss on the season, and it won't be easy going on the road to a very good Texas team. But both these teams are very, very good teams. Offensively, Texas is scoring 43.2 points per game. They also have a great pass game, throwing for 306 yards per game, and also run the football very effectively. They face a Georgia defense that's allowing 17.2 points per game, and isn't good against the pass, allowing 192 passing yards per game. Now that's not terrible, but I don't really expect them to be able to slow down a good Texas pass offense with Quinn Ewers. Now, the Georgia offense is scoring 33.8 points per game, and they're also very good throwing the football, passing for 318 yards per game. But they now face a Texas defense that is one of the best in the country. Texas is allowing just 6.3 points per game and 126 passing yards per game. Both those stats are actually top 2 in the country. But this is a game that could go either way, but I'm going to take Texas to get the win for a few reasons. 1, they're home. 2, I think their offense will be able to outscore Georgia if this game becomes a shootout. And 3, the Texas defense is elite, and I think they will be able to contain the Georgia offense. So I have Texas winning this game, and I think they've been the best team in the country so far. I think that continues. And hot take, I think they end up with a convincing win over Georgia and win by double digits. I have Texas 34-23. Up next, we have UCF at Iowa State. So Iowa State is undefeated at 6-0, while UCF isn't great at 3-3, but I don't think this will be the easiest game for Iowa State. As UCF is solid offensively, scoring 30 points per game, but they will have a new starting quarterback this week due to injury. But while a new starting quarterback would impact things for both teams, UCF relies heavily on the run game, rushing for 268 yards per game. Now, the Iowa State defense is good, allowing just 11 points per game. They're not the greatest against the run, allowing 140 rushing yards per game. So I could see RJ Harvey and this UCF offense finding some success on the ground. Now, on the other side, Iowa State is also scoring about 30 points per game, and they face a UCF defense that's okay, allowing 23 points per game. So while I do think this will be a close game, I do have Iowa State getting the win. I think their defense will be the difference, and Iowa State remains undefeated in a lower scoring game, 24-14. Up next, we have Kansas State at West Virginia. So this is an interesting matchup. West Virginia was thought to have been a sleeper team in the Big 12, but hasn't played that way so far, as they're just 3-3. They now face a contender in the Big 12, Kansas State, currently sitting at 5-1. Kansas State is good offensively, scoring 31.6 points per game, and they face a West Virginia defense that has struggled, allowing 26 points a game on the season. Now, while the West Virginia offense is good at scoring 30 points per game, they face a pretty good Kansas State defense, allowing 21 points per game, and Kansas State is especially good against the run, and that is exactly what West Virginia wants to do offensively. So if West Virginia isn't able to run the football, which I don't think they will be able to, I don't think they'll have a ton of success offensively. But I think Kansas State continues to play well. I think they'll win this game pretty easily by a score of 28-13. And our final game, we have SMU at Stanford. So SMU is playing well right now. They're 5-1, and actually their only loss is against an undefeated BYU team. SMU is coming off a big win over Louisville last week, and they need to avoid a letdown game against a Stanford team that isn't great. But SMU, they're great offensively, scoring 40.8 points per game, and they face a Stanford team that isn't good defensively, allowing over 30 points a game. So I think the SMU offense will continue to play well and continue to let up the scoreboard. Now, Stanford's offense isn't good enough to keep up with an SMU offense, as they're only scoring 20 points a game, and even if SMU starts off slow, I still think they'll end up beating Stanford pretty easily. I've got SMU winning 35-14. Well, those are my Week 8 college football predictions. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications so you don't miss any of their upcoming videos. I do my best to put as often as possible. Be sure to check out the community tab of my channel, where you guys can vote on who you think will win some of this week's big games. But thank you for watching. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, turn notifications. I do my best to put as often as possible. I will see you in the next video.